Hey guys, Shane here with Etrailer.com. Today I have a 2018 Jeep JK Wrangler Unlimited, and I want to walk you through how I installed the Bluebox baseplate kit. The baseplate is going to be one of the 6 components needed to flat tow the Jeep behind your motorhome. The other 5 are going to be your tow bar, your wiring, your safety cables, your braking system, and a brake light relay. You can see our baseplate is going to mount underneath our bumper. It's going to mount directly to the chassis of the vehicle or the frame of the vehicle. So it's very solid, steel construction, black powder coat finish. It's really going to hold up to against rust and corrosion very well. And when you're not flat towing, the arms are removable, so it's going to maintain a nice clean look on the front of the vehicle. Another thing, there's caps that'll fit inside of each of these holes, this one and the other one, to help keep any dirt and debris out of it when you're not flat towing. Your base plate is going to be a connection point for your tow bar. Tow bar, again, our base plate is Bluebox. If you like to keep your stuff matching, our tow bar is Bluebox, 10,000 pound weight capacity. It's more than enough to handle the Jeep. Very nice finish on it. It's going to be non-binding. So when your arms lock out, when you get to where you're going, if you're on unlevel ground or something, you simply pull the lever. It's going to unlock the arm, and it allows you to remove the arm off of the base plate much easier. Each arm moves independently. It also swivels, so if your Jeep's, if you're on unlevel terrain and your Jeep's going this way, but your motorhome's going this way, it allows the arms to move that way. You can also fold it up and fold it over to store it on the back of the RV. One thing to keep in mind, when you're doing your setup, you want your tow bar to be as flat as possible. So if you notice here, we have a high-low adapter because our hitch on our motorhome is much higher than our base plate. Now to figure out if you're going to need a high-low adapter, what you need to do is go out and measure from the ground to the center of your hitch on the back of your RV. The measurement from the ground to the center of the pin on our base plate is 16.5 inches. What you want is you want the number of your hitch, the measurement on your hitch, and that 16.5 inches to be within 3 inches. Keep in mind this is a stock Jeep, it's got stock tires on it. If you have bigger tires, that could change that measurement a little bit. Again, you want this to be as flat as possible. You don't want it higher at this end, and you don't want it under 3 inches or over 3 inches going down. So you can see here, this is where our safety chain hooks attach. Very large openings here to remove your arm. Simply remove the pin for your tow bar. You're going to pull this ring, twist, and it removes the arm. As you can see, nice clean look on the front of the vehicle when you're not flat towing. To put it back in, the pin is going to be spring loaded, so all you do is push till that spring or till that pin collapses, twist it until it locks into place. Overall, I think the Bluebox base plate kit is a great option for flat towing your Jeep. The installation is pretty simple and straightforward. It's really not a difficult installation, and it maintains a nice clean look when you're not flat towing the vehicle, just using the vehicle normally. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk you through how to get it installed. To start our installation, we need to remove our belly pan. This particular one has some fasteners. You can take a flathead screwdriver, trim panel tool, and just pop it out like that. Yours may have a fastener similar, but it'll have a Phillips head center in it. If it does, take a Phillips head screwdriver, and you don't want to push on it. All you want to do is just touch it and then loosen that center, and it'll drop the center Phillips part out, and then you pull out the fastener. We'll pop all these out and then remove our belly pan. We're going to have a few right across the front here that run across here, and then we're going to have one up underneath on this side and one up underneath on that side. We're going to have one here and then one on the other side. And then these get removed the same way. And then we'll set our belly pan aside. Next, if you have fog lights, you need to disconnect the wires. We'll just unplug them here. Right at the light on both sides. The wire for each light has a clamp on it, and is clamped to the steel part of the bumper. we need to pop those loose because we're going to be removing the bumper. Well, I have another one over on this side. Next thing we're going to do is take an 18mm socket. Your directions are going to tell you to take just the inside ones out. You're actually going to need to take the outside ones out also. We're going to have 2 nuts on the inside of the frame rail, 2 nuts on the outside, on both sides that are holding your bumper in place. Remove all 4 of those nuts. Once you get the nuts off of each side, there's going to be a plate like this. You'll know it. It's kind of hard to get the camera into to see, but this plate, you're going to hear it because it's going to come loose. Pull these off and set these aside. And then we're going to remove our bumper and set it aside. Just make sure you don't pull it off too fast in case maybe you miss one of the wire loom clamps or something like that. You don't want to damage your wiring. Should just slide out just like that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take our base plate and we're going to slide it over these plates on the side of our frame rail. I'm going to line up this bottom hole. Now, if you notice, I kind of had a hard time getting it up there. Typically, they're not going to be like that. They should slide right in place. If you have to put it up like that, take a soft hammer like this. Just kind of tap the bottom until you get that hole lined up on each side. Once you get your base plate up into place, you're going to have 2 larger hex bolts like this. Put on a lock washer. We're going to use red Loctite on all the hardware that we're going to be installing on our base plate. The red Loctite does not come in your kit. You can find it here at Etrailer. What we're going to do is we're going to feed it from the outside in. We're going to have a handle nut like this. We're going to go up through the frame rail into the bolt. And then in place, we're going to do that on both sides. Next, what we're going to do is I'm going to tighten these bolts down to hold my base plate in place. What you want to make sure before you tighten them is that your base plate is level. It's not leaning up or leaning down. What I did is just eyeballed this top line of my base plate with the top line of my frame rail and just make sure it's even. Use a 15/16 socket. We're going to tighten those for now. Then we're going to come up and we're going to drill these holes out. In your directions, it's going to say 17/64 drill bit. I'm going to go up to a 1/2 inch, which is about the same. It's just a little bit bigger than the bolt itself because I don't have a 17/16. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 1/2 inch drill bit to mark my hole so it's centered. And then I'm going to take a small bit, drill a pilot hole, and then just step it up. It'll save your bits and it'll save your shoulders. It'll make it go a lot faster. What we want to do is we just want to go through this outside edge of the frame rail. We don't want to go all the way through it. Once you get all 4 holes done, we're going to loosen these bolts back up. We're going to have a spacer block that's going to go in here, bolt that goes through, and then a couple more nuts that we got to feed up through the frame rail on the back of the bolts. Now we're going to take our 4 remaining bolts, this block, they're going to go in the same way on both sides. We're going to take this block and slide it through our bracket and our frame rail. And what we want to do is we want to line it up to get the hole, and basically it's just a spacer. We're going to take our handle nut for each bolt. They're going to be smaller. We can go in this way. For each one, I suggest maybe doing the back one first. Make sure you have the lock washer on the outside. Once we get one side done, again, we're going to repeat that on the other side. Now we're going to come back and we're going to tighten and then torque all of our hardware. 15/16 sockets for these, 3/4 inch sockets for those. I'm going to repeat that for all of your hardware. Once you get all your bolts tightened down or torqued down, you can cut these off or you can bend them up inside the frame rail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them off. You can use some shears like this. I'm going to take this excess and just kind of push it inside there. Next thing we're going to do is we can reinstall our bumper, and then we're going to get our underbody panel trimmed out so we can reinstall it. Before we start trimming out our belly pan, we need to make sure we put on our safety cables. We're going to have one for each side. So we're going to take one end, we're going to go up over top of our frame rail. We need to look inside here and see the best way to do it so we're not grabbing down on any wires or anything like that. Get in here like this and pull it around and make sure that we're going to be staying away from anything moving. Your bar here, that bar. So what we'll do is we'll get this on, and then we can take zip tie and zip tie the rest of our cable so it doesn't rub on anything. So I really didn't like how this was going through here. There wasn't really anywhere to zip tie any of my extra. So I'm actually going to take it, slide it back out and go behind that body mount. I'm going to come down like this in front of this cross beam. We'll hook it back on like this. Then I'll take my extra. I'm going to zip tie it right there to that bar. Stays out of the way of this and the way out of the way of my steering arm. And we're going to take our zip tie. I'm going to zip tie right to this bar. Make sure you're taking your zip tie like this, because it's not going to really hold your line. You're going to have a hard line here on top. Try not to go over the top of that line. Try to go in between that line and this bar so we don't take a chance of damaging that line. Now this is going to be under your belly pan, but again, you want to make sure it stays out of the way of any moving parts. For this one, what I'm going to do, there's a hole right up here. I'm going to run a zip tie through it. I'm going to zip tie it just like that. That way we don't take a chance of when we turn, our wheels hitting it. You just want to make sure it's kind of pulled up against that bracket. Once you're done with one side, you're going to repeat the process on the other. And what we need to do is we're going to hold our belly pan up into place, kind of eyeball it, line it up with the holes where it mounts, and we're going to need to trim. And we're just going to trim a little bit out, enough to slide it up around this bracket so we can get it up behind here. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll cut off a little bit, feed it up in there, and I'll end up having to cut more, but it's always better to cut a little bit, come back and cut it some more, rather than cutting too much off and it looking a little goofy. I'm just going to use a paint marker, just to give me an idea there. So what I did is mark my spot, and I went down about 4 inches. We'll test fit it and see if we need to cut off any more. What I suggest doing is what I did is where this outside hole is on the bumper, I measured it from there over to the edge of the bracket with a stiff ruler, and it was about 3 1/4 inches. Just make sure you measure that because yours could be a little bit different. Once you get that, take a rotary tool, and we're going to cut on this outside edge and see what we come up with. Once you get it cut, go ahead and reinstall your panel or your underbody panel, reverse order from the way you took it off. That's going to do it for a look at installation on the Blue Ox Baseplate kit on our 2018 Jeep JK Wrangler Unlimited.